Commander stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the stars outside the viewing window. His ship floated in deep space, far from Earth. 23 years had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. 23 long years of bowing their heads and accepting orders from alien species who treated them like children. The communication panel beeped, pressed the button and saw Admiral's face appear on the screen. The Admiral looked tired. Lines creased his forehead and his eyes showed the weight of too many difficult decisions. "Commander, I have new orders for you," said. His voice was flat and emotionless. Straightened his uniform. "Yes, Admiral." "They are moving into the 442 system. You are to evacuate all human personnel from the mining colonies there. Do not engage their forces. I repeat, do not engage." The words hit like a punch to the gut. 442 was a human system. Humans had discovered it, terraformed the moons, and built 3 thriving colonies there. Over 50,000 people called it home. "Admiral, with respect, that system is ours. We have every right to defend it." His expression hardened. "Commander, you have your orders. The Council has already decided. They gave to thee as part of a territorial agreement. We must comply." Wanted to argue, he wanted to refuse, but he had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew how to follow orders even when they burned in his throat. "Yes, sir. We will begin evacuation immediately." The screen went dark, turned to his crew. Lieutenant, his tactical officer, was staring at him with barely controlled anger in her eyes. "Sir, this is the 4th system we've given up in 2 years," she said. "When do we stop retreating?" Had no answer for her. He just shook his head and gave the order to set course for 442. Meanwhile, on the Galactic Council station that orbited the planet Centrum Prime, Ambassador Park sat in the council chamber and felt her dignity being stripped away piece by piece. The chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in a circle. 7 species held positions of power on the council. Humans sat in the lower tier, in seats marked for probationary members. The representative, a tall creature with dark red skin and 4 arms, was speaking. His voice boomed through the chamber with absolute confidence. "The humans have no legitimate claim to 442. They are a young species. They do not understand the ancient treaties that govern territorial rights. We are doing them a favor by teaching them their place." Stood up from her seat. "Ambassador, the human colonies in 442 have been there for 18 years. We invested billions of credits. Thousands of families live there. You cannot simply take it." They laughed. It was a horrible sound, like rocks grinding together. Other council members joined in. The representative, a being made of what looked like living crystal, made a tinkling sound that had learned was their version of laughter. "Ambassador Park," said the Dominion speaker, a creature with too many eyes and tentacles where a mouth should be. "Your species agreed to certain limitations when you joined this council. You do not have the military strength to hold systems against established powers. Perhaps in a few centuries, you will be ready for full membership. Until then, you must accept our guidance." Felt her hands shaking. She clenched them into fists and forced herself to stay calm. "My government protests this decision. It is unjust and violates the principles this council claims to uphold." "Your protest is noted," they said with another grinding laugh, "and ignored." The vote was called. 7 voices said yes to giving to the. Only Earth voted no. The decision was final. Returned to her quarters after the session ended. She sat down at her desk and put her head in her hands. Her assistant, Dr. Han, entered quietly and placed a cup of tea beside her. "How much longer?" asked softly. "How much longer do we let them humiliate us?" Looked up at her friend. But she had also served in Earth's defense forces before becoming a diplomat. She understood both the science of alien species and the reality of power. "As long as we must," said. "Earth's survival depends on our restraint." "Does it?" asked. "Or are we just afraid to show them what we really are?" did not answer. Back on the horizon's edge, and his crew worked around the clock to evacuate 442. The colonists were angry and confused. Many had been born on those moons. They did not understand why Earth's military would not protect them. "My children grew up here," one woman said as she boarded a transport ship. "This is their home. Why won't you fight for it?" Wanted to tell her the truth. He wanted to explain that Earth had weapons that could not imagine. He wanted to say that humanity's fleet could turn the Empire into dust and scatter it across the galaxy. But he could not. Those were secrets he had sworn to protect. "I am sorry," was all he said. "Please board the transport. We need to leave before the fleet arrives." As the last transport ship left the system, watched the vessels approach. They were massive war cruisers, covered in weapons and armor. They looked powerful and threatening. They wanted everyone to see their strength and feel afraid. Stood beside at the window. "Sir, our real ships could destroy their entire fleet in under an hour." "I know," said quietly. "Then why do we run?" "Because those are our orders. Because Earth's leadership has a plan, we have to trust them." But even as he said it, felt doubt growing in his heart. How long could they keep running? How many more colonies would they abandon? How many more times would they bow their heads while alien empires laughed at them? The horizon's edge turned away from 442 and jumped into faster-than-light travel. Behind them, they took control of another human system. It was a pattern that had repeated too many times. On Earth, in a secret military facility deep underground, Admiral met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls. Red marks showed all the territories humanity had lost. Blue marks showed where their secret fleets were hidden. "How much longer?" asked General Sung. "The colonists are losing faith. Our own people are starting to think we are weak." Looked at the maps. "The Council must believe we are weak. They must be absolutely certain of it. When we finally act, they cannot see it coming." "And when will that be?" pressed. "Soon," said. "Very soon. We are almost ready. We just need them to push us one more time, one more insult, one more theft, and then we will show them the truth." The room fell silent. Every person there knew what was coming. They had been preparing for it since the day humanity first encountered alien life. They had built weapons in secret. They had developed technologies that would change everything. They had restrained themselves, hidden their true capabilities, and endured humiliation after humiliation. But restraint had its limits. Even the most patient being could be pushed too far, and humanity was running out of patience. The message reached Admiral at 3:47 hours Earth Standard Time. He was asleep when his communication device screamed its urgent alarm. He grabbed it and saw Captain Lee's face on the screen. Her face was covered in dust and blood. "Admiral Station is under attack. They opened fire without warning. They are targeting evacuation ships." Felt ice water fill his veins. "Say that again, Captain." "They are firing on civilian transports, sir. We have thousands of casualties already. I need permission to return fire." Said, though each word felt like swallowing glass. "Begin full evacuation. Protect the civilians as best you can, but do not engage military vessels." "Sir, they are murdering people. Children are dying." "I know, Captain. Follow your orders." The connection broke. Sat in his dark bedroom and felt something break inside his chest. Station had 200,000 civilians. It was a research colony, not a military base. There was no strategic value to attacking it. They were doing this simply because they could. He made the hardest call of his life. He contacted Earth's Defense Council and spoke words he never wanted to say. Request permission to activate Protocol Endgame. On station, Captain Lee ran through corridors filled with smoke and screaming. Her station was dying. Warships had appeared without warning and started bombarding the habitat rings. Explosions tore through the hull. Air screamed out into space through 1,000 wounds. found Park in Engineering Section 7. He was Ambassador's younger brother, a civilian engineer who designed water purification systems. Now he was trying to override the emergency bulkhead controls to let more people escape. "We need to go now," shouted over the alarms. "Not yet. There are 60 people trapped in Section 8. I can get the door open." "The hull is breaching. We have maybe 2 minutes." His fingers flew across the control panel. "Then I better work fast." The door slid open. People poured out, running for the evacuation ships, smiled with relief. Then the wall exploded inward. An energy weapon had punched through the station's armor. The blast threw backward. She hit the far wall and her vision went black for several seconds. When she could see again, she found he had been standing right where the energy blast hit. There was not much left to find. Dragged herself to her feet. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. She kept moving, kept helping people evacuate, kept doing her duty even as her heart turned to stone. They did not stop firing. 3 transport ships full of refugees were destroyed as they tried to escape. Over 40,000 people died in those ships. Most of them were families, children who would never grow up, parents who would never see Earth again. When the evacuation was finally complete, stood on the bridge of the last ship to leave. She watched station break apart behind them. They were already moving in to claim what was left. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador received the news during a formal dinner. She read the message on her personal device and felt the world stop moving. 40,000 dead. Her brother was among them. She stood up from the dinner table. The ambassador was there, eating expensive food and laughing at some joke. Walked over to him. "You attacked station," she said. Her voice was perfectly calm. They looked up at her. "It was in disputed territory. We claimed it. Your people should have left faster. You fired on evacuation ships. You killed 40,000 civilians. Unfortunate, but these things happen in territorial disputes. Your species will learn to vacate systems more efficiently." Wanted to kill him. She wanted to wrap her hands around his throat and squeeze until he stopped breathing. But she was a diplomat. She had control. "Request an emergency council session," she said. "I will bring formal charges of war crimes." They laughed. "Do what you must, Ambassador. The council will side with us as always." The emergency session was called for the next day. Stood before the council and presented evidence of the attack. She showed footage of warships firing on clearly marked civilian transports. She displayed the names and faces of every person who died, especially the children. "This was not a territorial dispute," she said. "This was murder. I call for immediate sanctions against the Empire and criminal prosecution of their military leadership." The council chamber was silent for a moment. Then the Dominion speaker made a sound like wind through hollow tubes. It was their version of a sigh. "Ambassador Park, we understand you are emotional, but the action, while regrettable, was within the bounds of established conflict protocols. Systems in disputed zones can be claimed by force. Your people were warned." "We were given 6 hours' notice," said. 6 hours to evacuate 200,000 people. "That is more than the minimum required warning," said the representative. Looked around the chamber. She saw no sympathy in any of the faces. These beings had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They did not care about 40,000 human deaths. They barely cared about humans at all. "For 23 years we have followed every rule," said quietly. "We accepted every limitation. We gave up territories. We retreated when you told us to retreat. We have been patient and peaceful and cooperative, and you repay us with this." The ambassador stood up. "Your species is weak. You have no great fleets. You have no ancient empire. You are newcomers who must learn their place. Perhaps this tragedy will teach you proper humility." Something in his expression changed. The other council members noticed it. They had never seen a human look quite that way before. Her eyes went cold and hard like chips of ice. "You mistake restraint for weakness," she said softly. "We have shown you patience. We have shown you mercy. We have held back our true strength because we hoped for peace, but you have pushed us too far." She turned to the council as a whole. "I am authorized to deliver an ultimatum from Earth. Return all seized territories to human control. Submit to neutral arbitration on all territorial disputes. Pay reparations for the deaths at station. You have 72 hours to comply." The chamber erupted in laughter. The ambassador laughed so hard he had to sit down. Even species that usually stayed neutral were making sounds of amusement. "And if we refuse?" they asked when he could breathe again. "What will you do? Will you stomp your feet and cry? Will you write angry letters?" "Then you will learn what humans are truly capable of," said. "And I promise you, you will not enjoy the lesson." She left the chamber. Behind her, the council continued laughing. They thought she was making empty threats. They thought humanity was desperate and powerless. They had no idea what was about to happen. On Earth, Admiral received word that the ultimatum had been delivered and rejected. He had known it would be rejected. The council believed humans were weak. They needed to believe it. Everything depended on their arrogance. He opened a secure channel to every ship in Earth's secret fleet. Hundreds of vessels that the council did not know existed. Weapons platforms hidden in dead systems. Soldiers who had trained for this moment for decades. "All forces, this is Admiral. Execute protocol endgame. Authorization code Alpha Zulu 77. I repeat, protocol endgame is authorized." Across the galaxy, human military personnel received the message. Some of them wept with relief. Others felt their hearts turn cold and hard. All of them began to move. Commander received the message on the bridge of the horizon's edge. He read it twice to make sure he understood correctly. Then he turned to his crew. "Lieutenant, remove the outer hull plating. Bring all primary systems online. Activate the quantum drives." His eyes went wide. "Sir, are you sure? The time for hiding is over. Show them what this ship really is." The horizon's edge began to change. The old, primitive-looking hull plating fell away. Beneath it was a warship of terrible beauty. Weapons systems came online. Shields activated. The ship had been disguised as an old cargo vessel. Now it revealed itself as one of the most advanced destroyers ever built. All across human space, the same transformation was happening. Ships shed their disguises. Hidden bases activated. Cloaked platforms began charging their weapons. The Empire detected the energy signatures and realized something was very wrong. They sent scouts to investigate. Those scouts never reported back. Humanity was done restraining itself. The war fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a hammer coming down on an anvil. 3,000 warships, each one massive and covered with weapons. They had conquered dozens of species over They had crushed rebellions and destroyed entire civilizations. Earth would be no different. Emperor himself commanded the fleet from his flagship, the Crimson Fist. He broadcast a message across all frequencies so everyone in the galaxy could hear his victory. "Humans, you have made demands you cannot enforce. You have threatened powers beyond your comprehension. Now you will learn what happens to species who forget their place. Surrender your and accept slavery, or we will turn your planet into radioactive dust." On Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral watched the fleet on the tactical display. 3,000 ships against the 200 Earth vessels that were visible in the system. Any military analyst would say the battle was already over. General Sung stood beside him. "They think they have already won." "Good," said. "Let them keep thinking that for a few more minutes." Commander stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, which was now positioned near Jupiter with the rest of Earth's visible fleet. His ship looked small and pathetic compared to the dreadnoughts. That was exactly the point. "Sir, they are moving into attack formation," Lieutenant reported. They will be in weapons range in 4 minutes. Wait for it, said calmly. The fleet spread out like a net closing around its prey. Their weapons charged. Energy signatures spiked across the entire system. In 30 seconds, they would open fire and begin the slaughter. Sir asked nervously. Wait. 20 seconds, 15, 10. All ships execute condition 0, said quietly. Everything changed. The 200 human ships that had been waiting near Jupiter dropped their outer hulls. Beneath the disguise were vessels of terrifying power. Weapons systems that had been hidden came online. Shields powered up to levels that should have been impossible. But that was not the real surprise. All across the Sol system, in places that had not even looked, space rippled like water. Cloaking fields deactivated. 800 additional warships appeared from nowhere. They had been there the entire time, hiding with stealth technology so advanced the never detected them. The human fleet now numbered 1,000 ships, not 200, and every single one of them was more advanced than anything they had ever seen. Emperor stared at his tactical display in confusion. Where did those ships come from? How did we not detect them? His tactical officer had no answer. The officer was too busy staring at the energy readings coming from the human vessels. Emperor, their power signatures are off the scale. I do not understand what I am seeing. It does not matter. We still outnumber them 3-1. All ships open fire. The fleet unleashed everything they had. Thousands of energy beams and missiles screamed through space toward the human ships. None of them hit. The human shields absorbed the attacks like they were nothing. Not a single ship took damage. They fired again with the same result. Their most powerful weapons just splashed harmlessly against barriers they could not penetrate. Return fire, Admiral said from Earth. The human fleet opened fire. What happened next would be remembered for the rest of galactic history. Human weapons cut through shields like they were made of paper, directed energy beams that operated on principles they did not understand, missiles that could shift through dimensions to bypass armor, that accelerated projectiles to a significant percentage of light speed. In the first 30 seconds, the humans destroyed 200 ships. Captain Nam commanded the experimental warship Prometheus, humanity's most advanced vessel. It was a ship that had been built in absolute secrecy and had never been revealed until this moment. The Prometheus looked small compared to the dreadnoughts, but appearances were deceiving. Target the enemy command cluster, ordered. Activate the singularity cannon. His crew worked quickly. The singularity cannon was a weapon that most scientists had said was impossible. It created a tiny, artificial black hole, fired it at the target, and let physics do the rest. The weapon fired. A point of absolute darkness appeared in front of the Prometheus and shot forward at incredible speed. It hit the center of the formation. 50 ships simply ceased to exist. They were not destroyed. They were not blown apart. They were compressed into nothing as the artificial singularity consumed them. When the black hole evaporated a few seconds later, there was just empty space where 50 massive warships had been. The entire fleet faltered. Their formation broke. Ships began trying to retreat. Do not let them escape, ordered. Close the trap. Major Shin commanded Earth's Special Operations Division. His teams had been waiting for this moment. While the fleets fought, his soldiers were doing something they never expected. They were boarding the Crimson Fist. And 20 of his best soldiers materialized on the flagship using teleportation technology. They did not even know such technology existed. Their security systems never triggered because the soldiers simply appeared inside the secure areas. Move fast, said to his team. We have 7 minutes to reach the command deck. They moved through the ship like ghosts. Security forces tried to stop them and died before they could fire a shot. Human weapons and armor were generations ahead. The Special Operations soldiers had been enhanced with genetic modifications and cybernetic implants. Each one was worth a dozen normal soldiers. They reached the command deck in 6 minutes and 30 seconds, kicked open the door and shot the 4 guards before they could react. Emperor turned around and saw a human soldier pointing a weapon at his head. "You are under arrest for war crimes," said. "Surrender now or die." Tried to reach for a weapon, shot him in the arm. The Emperor fell to the ground screaming. "Lock down this ship," ordered his team, and broadcast surrender orders to their entire fleet. Outside the ship, the battle was already over. Doctor, working from a control station on Earth's moon, had activated a network of gravitational disruptors that had been seeded throughout the system over the past decade. The technology created artificial gravity fields that could trap ships like flies in honey. The entire fleet found themselves unable to move. Their engines fired at full power, but they stayed locked in place. They could not escape. They could not maneuver. They were sitting targets. "This is Commander to all vessels. Your Emperor has been captured. Your flagship is under our control. You are surrounded and trapped. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that refuses will be destroyed." Most of the ships surrendered immediately. A few tried to fight. Those ships were eliminated with ruthless efficiency. Human boarding teams swept through the fleet, taking control of one ship after another. 4 hours after the battle began, it was over. 3,000 warships had been destroyed or captured. The human fleet had not lost a single vessel. Not one human soldier had died. It was not a battle, it was a demonstration. Admiral broadcast a message across all galactic frequencies. He wanted every species to hear his words. "For 23 years, humanity has appeared weak. We allowed you to take our territory. We accepted your insults. We followed rules that were designed to keep us powerless. You asked yourselves why we seemed so weak. The answer is simple. We were not weak. We were testing you. We wanted to see if you were worthy of peace, if you could treat a seemingly inferior species with justice and respect. You failed that test." He paused to let his words sink in. "What you saw today was just a fraction of our true capability. We could have destroyed the fleet in minutes instead of hours. We could have killed every soldier instead of capturing them. We restrained ourselves because that is what civilized beings do. But do not mistake that restraint for weakness ever again." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, every species that had laughed at humanity fell silent. The collective recalled their fleets to defensive positions. The Dominion went into emergency session. Minor powers that had been considering aggression against human colonies suddenly changed their minds. The galaxy had just learned a terrifying truth. Humanity had not been weak. They had been hiding. And now that they had revealed themselves, nothing would ever be the same. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Commander looked at the debris field that had been the Armada. He felt no joy in the victory. Too many humans had died at station. Too many colonies had been abandoned. Too much humiliation had been endured. But it was over now. The hiding was done. Humanity had shown its true face to the galaxy. "What do we do now, sir?" Lieutenant asked. Thought about that question. They had revealed their strength. They had defeated their enemy, but strength alone would not build a better galaxy. "Now," he said slowly, "we show them that humanity is not just strong. We are also just. We will build something better than what came before. And if the others do not want that," his expression hardened, "then we will build it anyway, with their cooperation or over their ruins. The choice is theirs." The galaxy held its breath. 3 days had passed since the Battle of Saul. 3 days since humanity revealed that they were not the weak species everyone believed them to be. The Galactic Council still existed, but nobody was sure for how much longer. Earth sent a new message to every government that had voted to strip away human territories. The message was simple and clear: return what you stole or face the consequences. The collective responded first. They were an ancient species who lived in vast city ships made of living crystal. They had ruled a sector of space for over 10,000 years. They believed their defenses were perfect. Nothing could touch them. General Sung stood in the command center watching the fleet movements. Earth's forces were moving on 12 different systems simultaneously. This was not going to be like Saul. This would be a coordinated strike across multiple light years of space. They have activated their shield spheres around there, an officer reported. Energy signatures match what our intelligence predicted. Nothing can pass through those shields, not even light. Then we will go around them, said simply. The shields were perfect by the standards of conventional physics. They created a barrier in normal space that could withstand any attack. But human scientists had not been working with conventional physics for a very long time. The human fleet arrived at the massive shield sphere glowed around the planet like a second sun. Defense forces waited behind it, confident in their protection. Deploy dimensional breach devices, ordered. Human ships began activating technology that made the shields completely useless. They opened rifts into dimensional space, a layer of reality that existed alongside normal space. The ships slipped through these rifts and emerged inside the shield sphere. The defenders suddenly found human warships appearing right next to them. There was no warning. The shields had not been penetrated. The humans had simply bypassed them using principles they did not understand. This is General Sung of Earth Defense Forces. Stand down and prepare for boarding. Your government has 72 hours to return all stolen territories and submit to arbitration. Resist, and you will be destroyed. The fleet was in chaos. Half their commanders wanted to fight. The other half wanted to surrender. While they argued, human boarding teams were already taking control of their defense platforms. But the biggest shock was yet to come. Specialist Bay had been working undercover in the government for 8 years. She looked through genetic modification and surgery. She spoke their language perfectly. She had risen to a position of trust in their intelligence service. Now she activated her real mission. She broadcast a message from inside the command center. The message went to every government in the galaxy. It contained proof that human intelligence agents had been embedded in every major galactic power for years. Humans had been watching, listening, and learning from inside their enemies' own governments. "We know everything," said in her broadcast. "We know which council members plan to divide human space among themselves. We know which governments were preparing to enslave human populations. We have recordings of every meeting where you plotted against us. You thought we were too primitive to notice. You were wrong." She uploaded terabytes of data to public galactic networks. Conversations between council members planning how to keep humanity weak. Trade agreements designed to strangle human economic growth. Military plans for invading Earth if humans ever became a threat. The evidence was undeniable. The Galactic Council had been deliberately keeping humanity down. It had not been fair competition or ancient treaties. It had been a coordinated effort to prevent humans from becoming powerful. 3 more species surrendered within hours of the revelations. They saw which way things were going. They wanted to be on the winning side. But the Dominion refused to surrender. They were the most arrogant species in the galaxy. They had existed for 50,000 years. They had built an empire when most species were still living in caves. They would not bow to upstart humans. Captain Lee had been promoted to admiral after the Battle of Saul. Now she commanded a battle group heading for the core systems. She stood on the bridge of her flagship and remembered station. She remembered, and all the others who had died. "Admiral, the fleet is moving to intercept us," her tactical officer reported. "They have 1,500 ships." "Only 1,500, said. "They are not taking us seriously. Show them why that is a mistake." The battle was short and brutal. They had weapons that could crack planets. They had shields that had withstood sieges for centuries. None of it mattered. Human technology was not just advanced, it was revolutionary. Used tactics that had never seen. Her ships could jump in and out of dimensional space. They could create gravity fields that crushed enemy vessels. They had weapons that ignored shields by attacking ships at the quantum level. In 2 days, the fleet was destroyed. There was blockaded. Their emperor was given a choice: surrender or watch his planet be isolated from the rest of the galaxy forever. The emperor chose surrender. Back on Earth, ambassadors stood in a special chamber watching the proceedings through a holographic display. They had captured the key leaders who had orchestrated the station attack. Now it was time for justice. Admiral and Ambassador Minyu O joined her. Minyu was a former military commander who had become a diplomat. He understood both warfare and negotiation. "The galaxy is watching," Minyu said quietly. "How we handle this will define humanity's future." "They need to see that we are not conquerors," said. "But they also need to understand that we will not tolerate injustice." She activated the broadcast so every species could watch. Earth's representatives appeared before the captured Galactic Council members. "You stand accused of war crimes," said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. "You ordered the attack on station knowing it would kill civilians. You laughed when we asked for justice. You believed you could murder humans without consequences." The former ambassador tried to speak. "You have no authority to judge us. The council makes the laws." "The council no longer exists," Admiral said. "Or rather, it exists only because we allow it to exist. You made one critical mistake. You believed that might makes right, that the strong can do whatever they want to the weak. Very well, we are now the strongest, and we say that your actions were crimes. You will face trial, you will face judgment, and if found guilty, you will face punishment." Earth presented evidence to neutral observers, records of the attack on station, communications showing it was a deliberate massacre, proof that the Council had covered up other atrocities committed by powerful species against weaker ones. The verdicts came quickly: guilty on all charges. Some of the convicted were imprisoned, others were exiled, a few were executed for the worst crimes. Earth made sure the galaxy saw that justice would be enforced, but had a bigger goal than just punishing individual criminals. She wanted to change the entire system. "The Galactic Council is dissolved," she announced. "It was corrupt and unjust. It existed only to protect the powerful and exploit the weak. We will not restore it." Species across the galaxy panicked. If the Council was gone, who would maintain order? Who would mediate disputes? "In its place," continued, "Earth proposes the formation of the Interstellar Assembly, a new organization based on principles of equality, justice, and mutual respect. Every species will have representation. Decisions will be made democratically. The strong will not be allowed to prey on the weak." She paused to let the words sink in. "Those who wish to join the assembly and accept these principles are welcome. Those who prefer the old ways of conquest and domination may stay outside. But be warned, the assembly will defend its members. Any attack on one will be considered an attack on all." It was a brilliant move. Earth was offering protection to species who had been victims of the old council. They were building a coalition based on shared values instead of raw power. Over the next few weeks, 70 species applied to join the assembly. They were mostly smaller powers who had been marginalized by the council. They saw the assembly as their chance for fair treatment. But Earth still had to prove they meant what they said about justice. Doctor had a suggestion. "We should share some of our technology," she said in a meeting with Earth's leadership. "Not the weapons, but medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, agricultural improvements. Show them that we want to help, not just dominate." Admiral agreed. "But we share carefully, with species who prove they will use it for good, and always maintaining our military advantage." The first technology transfers began. Human medical techniques saved millions of lives on worlds that had been suffering from plagues. Human environmental technology helped restore planets that had been damaged by industrial pollution. Human agricultural methods ended famines. Slowly, species began to see that humanity was different. They did not conquer and enslave. They offered partnership and mutual benefit. But not everyone was convinced. Some species still believed the old ways were better. They plotted in secret to restore the council and destroy the assembly. Major and his special operations teams were ready for them. Human intelligence was everywhere now. They found the plots before they could develop. They arrested conspirators before they could act. "The galaxy is changing," Commander said one day to Lieutenant. "Some embrace the change, others fight it, but change is coming whether they want it or not." "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" asked. Thought about Station, about all the colonies that had been taken, about 23 years of humiliation and restraint. "We gave them a chance," he said. "We tried peace and diplomacy. They responded with cruelty and mockery. Now we build something better, not through their permission but through our strength. Yes, I believe we are doing the right thing." The galaxy had been ruled by the strong four. Earth had proven they were now the strongest. The question was whether they would be just as well as strong. The answer would determine the future of countless species. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Saul. The galaxy had changed in ways that would have seemed impossible before. The old Galactic Council was gone, destroyed by its own corruption. In its place stood the Interstellar Assembly, and the galaxy was learning what it meant to have humans in charge. Ambassador Park stood in the new assembly hall on the rebuilt station. The station that had been destroyed was now the headquarters of the new galactic government. It was a symbol, a reminder of what had been lost and what was being built. The assembly hall was enormous. Seats were arranged in concentric circles, all facing the center where speakers would address the members. Unlike the old council with its tiers showing who had more power, every seat in the assembly was equal. From the member species to Earth itself, everyone had the same vote. Today was important. Today they would vote on the final charter that would govern the assembly for generations to come. Had been elected as the first chancellor of the assembly. She had not wanted the position. She had lost too much, seen too much pain, but the member species had insisted. They trusted her. They believed she would be fair. Admiral entered the hall and took his seat. He was now Supreme Commander of the Assembly Defense Force, a unified military drawn from dozens of species. Human ships still formed the core of that force, but other species were contributing as well, learning from humans, becoming stronger together. "The vote will begin soon," said to. "Are you ready?" "I do not know," admitted. "We have built something unprecedented, but can it last? Will the strong species truly accept equality with the weak?" "They will accept it because we will enforce it," said, "and because it is in their interest. The old system led to constant war. Our system offers stability and prosperity." The assembly members began filing in. Representatives from over 100 species now. Some of them had been powerful in the old council. Others had been marginalized and ignored. Now they sat together as equals. Commander was there representing Earth's military forces. Captain represented the Science and Technology Division. Doctor represented the Diplomatic Corps. Major represented Intelligence Services. They were all part of the new order. The vote was called. The charter would establish rules that everyone must follow. No species could attack another assembly member. Disputes would be resolved through arbitration. Military forces would be limited to defensive needs. Technology would be shared to help all species advance. One by one, the species voted. Some voted yes enthusiastically. Others voted yes reluctantly. A few voted no, believing the old ways were better. When all votes were counted, the result was clear. 87% in favor. The charter was adopted. stood to address the assembly. She thought about everything that had happened, the years of humiliation, the deaths at station, her brother who would never see this moment, the battle that changed everything. 5 years ago, she began, humanity was considered weak. We were mocked. We were exploited. We watched as our colonies were taken and our people were killed. The old council believed we would always be beneath them. She paused, looking around at all the different species. They were wrong, not because we were secretly strong, though we were, but because they fundamentally misunderstood what strength means. They believed strength was the ability to take whatever you want, to crush anyone weaker, to rule through fear. But true strength, continued, is the power to protect the innocent, to stand against injustice, to build something better than what came before. We could have conquered this galaxy. We could have enslaved every species that opposed us. Instead, we offer you partnership. We offer you justice. We offer you a chance to build a future where the strong do not prey on the weak. The assembly hall was silent. Every being present knew the truth. Humanity could destroy any of them if it chose, but humanity was choosing a different path. This assembly is our promise, said. We will never again restrain ourselves in the face of tyranny. We will never again watch innocents die while we follow unjust rules. But we also promise to use our strength for good, to defend the defenseless, to seek peace when possible and war only when necessary. She looked directly at the former council members who had voted against the charter. Some of you still believe the old ways were better. You are free to leave the assembly, but know this. If you attack any member species, if you return to conquest and oppression, we will stop you, and we will not be gentle about it. The hall erupted in applause, not just from humans, but from dozens of species who had suffered under the old system, species who now had hope for a better future. Captain stood in the memorial garden that had been built where her engineering section had been destroyed. Names were carved into crystal walls. 40,000 names of those who died when they attacked. Among them was Park. She touched his name gently. We did it, she said quietly. We changed everything. I hope you would be proud. General joined her in the garden. The empire has been completely reformed, she said. They have a democratic government now. Their military is defensive only. Some of their people are even applying to join the Assembly Defense Force. Can we trust them? Asked. Not yet, but in time, maybe. We are teaching them a better way. Across the galaxy, the changes continued. Doctor worked with alien scientists to develop new technologies. Medical advances that would have taken centuries happened in years. Environmental restoration techniques spread to dozens of worlds. Agricultural methods ended hunger on planets that had been starving. But it was not just technology that spread. Human culture began influencing the galaxy. Ideas about individual rights, democratic governance, and ethical warfare. Not every species adopted these ideas, but many did. Major and his intelligence teams remained vigilant. There were still threats. Some species refused to accept the new order. Pirates and raiders took advantage of changing times. Extremist groups plotted violence. But the Assembly Defense Force was ready. Commander led peacekeeping missions to dozens of systems. Unlike the old Council forces who came to conquer, the Assembly forces came to protect. They stopped conflicts before they could escalate. They mediated disputes. They defended the weak. Lieutenant had been promoted to captain and commanded her own ship now. She was training mixed crews of humans and aliens to work together. It was not always easy. Different species had different ways of thinking, but they learned from each other. Captain continued developing new technologies, but now he was careful about what was shared and what was kept secret. The Prometheus and ships like it remained uniquely human. The assembly needed humanity to maintain military superiority, not to oppress others, but to ensure that no single species could threaten the peace. Doctor established the first interstellar university on Earth. Students from over 50 species came to learn. They studied human history and culture. They learned about the mistakes humanity had made and the lessons learned from those mistakes, and they taught humans about their own histories and cultures. It was an exchange that made everyone stronger. The empire, which had once seemed invincible, was now a shadow of its former self. But that was not entirely a bad thing. Without their massive military, they focused on other pursuits. Art and philosophy began to flourish. They were learning that power could come from creation instead of destruction. Ambassador Minu traveled to the former capital to negotiate a peace treaty. It was a formal recognition that the war was over, that a new relationship could begin. "Why do you not simply crush us?" the new president asked. "You have the power, we are defenseless." "Because that is not who we are," Minu replied. "We want partners, not slaves. We want a galaxy where every species can thrive. But understand this. If you ever threaten peace again, we will respond, and it will be the last mistake you make." The president nodded slowly. "We understand. We have learned our lesson." Years continued to pass. The assembly grew stronger. More species joined. The galaxy became more peaceful than it had been in. There were still conflicts. There were still problems, but they were resolved through negotiation and arbitration more often than warfare. Humanity did not become complacent. They remembered what happened when they appeared weak. They maintained their technological edge. They kept their fleets strong. They trained their soldiers and developed new weapons. But they used that strength to protect, not to conquer. One day, Ambassador stood again before the assembly. It was a special session. 10 years had passed since the Battle of Saul. 10 years since humanity revealed its true nature. "When we first joined the Galactic Council," said, "we hoped for peaceful cooperation. We believed that species could work together for mutual benefit. We were wrong to trust so easily, but we were right to hope. The old council failed because it was built on inequality. The strong ruled and the weak suffered. We have built something different, not perfect, but better. A system where justice matters as much as strength, where cooperation is valued over conquest." She looked around the hall at all the different species. "We restrained ourselves for 23 years because we hoped for peace. When that failed, we showed you our true strength. But strength alone does not build a civilization. Justice, compassion, and wisdom are equally important. This assembly is our promise to the galaxy. We will use our strength to protect the innocent. We will enforce justice. We will defend peace. And we will never again allow tyranny to flourish while we stand idle." The applause was thunderous, not because humans were feared, though they were, but because they were respected. They had proven that strength and justice could coexist. Commander stood on the observation deck of station years later, now an old man. Lieutenant, also older now, stood beside him. They looked out at the stars together. "Do you think it will last?" asked. "Everything we built?" Thought about the question carefully. Nothing lasts forever. Someday new challenges will arise. New threats will appear. But we have given the galaxy something it never had before. A foundation built on justice instead of power. If we have taught the next generation well, they will defend it. And if they do not, smiled, then humanity will remind them why we earned our place. We restrained ourselves once and learned the cost of that restraint. We will not make the same mistake twice. Ambassador, now elderly and preparing to retire, gave one final speech to the assembly. "I have served as your chancellor for 15 years. It is time for new leadership. But before I go, I want to leave you with this thought. Humanity joined the galactic community hopping to learn from older, wiser species. Instead, we taught them. We taught them that might does not make right, that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, that justice matters more than ancient traditions. We warned the galactic powers that we had restrained ourselves but would do so no more. We kept that promise, and because we did, the galaxy is better for everyone." She stepped down from the podium. The next chancellor, An alien from a species that had been marginalized under the old council took her place. It was a symbol of how much had changed. As left the assembly hall, she thought about her brother, about Station, about all the sacrifice that had led to this moment. "We did it," she whispered. "We changed the galaxy, not through conquest, through justice, through strength used wisely." The stars shone bright over Station. Humanity had taken its place among them, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as guardians of a new galactic order built on principles they had fought to establish. And they would never restrain themselves in the face of injustice again.